the stuff that we know, so it shouldn't be too complicated.
Well, see, for who? There you go with the assumptions of it being taught in university.
Hmm.
No. I
Yeah,
can, if I get one book on motor control, even that one, it doesn't even consider it. And
no,
these are PhD people, and they're talking about neuro. So yeah. Greetings, everyone. How is everyone doing?
yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's with us. Greetings, everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, we got. I'm just waiting for everyone's audio to connect. Couple of audios connecting. Yes, greetings, Miss Oswald. All right, let's see if everyone connected. Just one or
Greetings
two
all.
connecting to the
Hope
audio.
everyone's had a wonderful day as well. Had something nice to eat. Prepare the body,
Mhm.
prepare the mind, because the spine itself is. I know we've been going deep recently, but this, for some reason, is just as deep as talking about scalar technology, as talking about light, sound, frequency, and all the other wonderful, energetic, cosmic, amazing things out there. Talking about the spine and just talking about bone structure, functional anatomy. This is the same deepness going on here. Mainly because there is, from, let's say, the 40s, 1940s, ideas that have been proposed, put forward, that only recently have probably been rectified, and I'm talking about the last 10 years or so, but hasn't made it into the public domain. So everyone's got the same old idea that muscle do all the work. And it's our back muscles that are doing all the work in the spine. But we're gonna bring some clarity to this awareness. We're gonna bring, hopefully, everyone up to speed where we are in this appreciation of the function of the spine and how we approach this from a therapeutic setting.
All right, yeah, so the spinal engine is what we're going to be talking about today. Um, as we know, the spine is very important. It's the center of us, and when we're looking at the spine, it serves many, many different functions and roles. Part of the spine is to help, which we're going to talk about, is to help with the movement. Another part of the spine is to help protect our organs and also just to provide that skeletal framework, that scaffolding of the body where everything kind of attaches itself to. But we're going to focus on how the spine is involved in movement itself. So all movement is initiated from the core. So this is one of the things that the spinal engine proposes. A guy named Grokowski, can't pronounce his name, but it's that name there. In the 1980s, around that period of time, he done a lot of research, and he was the one that proposed the spinal engine theory. Because previously we thought the spine was, or walking itself was just something that, the legs done. But when we're looking at the spinal engine theory, we can see that it basically is to make movement as efficient as possible. So we're just going to show, I'm going to show some images or videos of just two ways of walking and two theories. So that's in the next slide, sorry. So yeah, previously believed that walking was entirely based on the legs. So we got this propulsion action. But when we're looking at the spinal engine theory, we can see that there's an incorporation of the spine, which kind of rotates in itself to allow a more efficient movement. So for example, when we're looking at this diagram here, this will be simply based on propulsion. There's not much movement in the spine at all. It's just basically the legs propelling the body forward. And as you can see in this image, it's very robotic, so to say. In regards to looking at the spinal engine theory, we can see actually that the spine is initiating the movement and allowing everything to rotate. And as we go further down the slide, we'll see what role the legs play. So to keep it simple at this point, we can see that the spinal engine theory is basically talking about the movement and the rotations of the spine to allow more energy efficient movement. So in regards to the theory, we can see that movement starts off from the core, and then it goes from proximal, which is, within our center, to distally, which means further away from our center. So walking, when we even observe ourselves walking, we can feel that the first part of that initiation is coming from that core. And that becomes very evident when you're looking at amputees, and that becomes very evident when you're going through, as clinicians, when we're taking a patient through the whole neurorehabilitation. We can see that it's very important to get their trunk strong first before we can even think about initiating the movement of the legs. So some of the things that we might do in clinic, if someone's been bedridden for a long time, we'll get them sitting on the edge of the bed. And it's only when the person can maintain their sitting balance on the edge of the bed can they even think of standing, can they even think of walking. So when we're looking at also the movement from the spine, we can see that as the left leg is moving forward, again, the spine is moving with it. So correctly, that should be as the trunk is moving or rotating, as the spine is rotating to the left, so will the leg move toward, so will the left leg move forward. So hopefully that should be demonstrated in this here. So that will be the walking. So as the spine is rotating, the left leg it allows the left leg to move forward. As the spine is rotating to the right, it will allow that trunk on the right side, the leg on the right side to move. So as the trunk moves, the legs will move. And that is because, again, the movement is starting from the spine, more proximally, going distally to the legs. Okay. So when we're looking at the spinal engine, two features of the spine which allows the movement to be more efficient is this lateral flexion that takes place. So when we're looking at it, the spine is not only just rotating, we're getting that lateral flexion. And actually, when we're getting that lateral flexion, again, it can make the movement more efficient. And that's evident, not so much in walking, because we might not need that level of efficiency in walking, but definitely in running, we can see where the top athletes will move their trunk. And there was this guy in the past, I forgot his name, and he had what looked like the worst running biomechanics ever, with a lot of trunk movement, but because of that, it actually allowed him to be so extremely efficient, where he was winning Olympic medals and stuff. So again, another feature of the spinal engine is looking at the lordosis. So not just the lateral flexion, the rotation that's going on, there's also the lordosis. So in regards to just a statement here, so the lordotic spine, lordosis is basically where you see basically what we will term the back off, or where the spine, I'll just show in the previous diagram, where the spine will come off that kind of S-shaped here. So that's lordosis. And the increased lordosis also helps to improve the energy efficiency of that spine. Yeah. So let me go on. Okay, so I'm just wondering, hopefully that's making sense at the moment. Yeah, so basically the things we've got to think of, yes, Michael Johnson, Usain Bolt, yeah, they're two people, again, Usain Bolt being the fastest man on the planet, obviously he has that lordosis, but there's other features that he has, which I'll show you later on, which again helps to make his movements much more efficient. So just to simplify, so when we're looking at the spinal engine, we're looking at the body making movement more efficient. Yeah. And the way it does make the movement more efficient is by generating the movement from the spine. When we're looking at the legs and the involvement of the legs, the previous theory was that the legs are just propelling the body forward. So the legs is carrying the trunk forward, you know, and as we can see, that movement is very robotic. But as we get the spine involved, the movement is less so robotic. It looks very natural on the eyes, but it's also very energy efficient, which is why we move in such a manner. And what this slide is trying to show is that they say, you know, through evolution, the Piscine lateral bend, which is basically this bend that we see in fish, and again, this bend in fish and the spine of fish, that's what makes its movement so efficient through water, is saying that the lordotic spine converts that movement into increasing the torque, which helps make the movement more energy efficient. And again, when we're looking at torque, just not to confuse us, torque is basically, the definition is the measurement of the force required, which causes something to rotate around a point. So, if I can't slow this down, but when you see his hand up all the way up there, that's the most torque. So when it's all the way straight, it's the most torque, which basically means that movement is going to be more efficient. And you can just think of, you know, if you're unscrewing something, if your hands is in this angle, it's going to be the easiest to produce a movement. If it's at that second angle, it's decreasing the torque. So which is basically means it's decreasing the energy efficiency. Yeah. So if we go back, we are looking at increase the lateral movement of the spine, the rotation of the spine, and also this whole thing going on here. So the movement of the spine makes that, this is a fast walker, and he's doing it in a more efficient way because he's utilizing the spine. If he was to do it in this manner, that's a lot of energy, you know, that's being wasted. And that's a lot of energy that's not being utilized to even gain more pace and more distance. Because in this model, we can see that the spine is not being activated in any way at all. And you can just practice walking with your spine very fixed and, you know, power walking down the streets of London, and you can see that there's a mechanism that is happening here, which is making the movement efficient. So this is just an example how lordosis will actually help increase the torque of the movement. So as we can see, I'm just bringing that back. That's the spine, that's bent a little bit back. And then what we have here, we have more propulsion in this manner. So a little bit of lordosis, this is just the best way I can show it to you without running. In other videos, you're going to see me running, which is going to make a little bit more sense. Yeah. So with the increased lordosis, it actually increases the torque. It increases the way that the limbs are able to kind of rotate in a manner which makes the movement a little bit more efficient. All right. So, you know, with all this talk about, you know, everything's coming from the spine, the question is then, do we need our legs? again, the guy that proposed the spinal engine theory states that the legs only amplify the movement and basically is secondary to the movement of the pelvis and the spine. Yeah. So in regards to priority, the spine is more important than actually the legs. And not only he showed, but it's actually evident when we look at amputees and that, even if people had stumps as legs or, no legs at all the way up to the femur, they'd still be able to mobilize on their stumps or even with, the right orthotic devices, they will be able to walk in a manner where they can have their prosthetic limbs and they still be able to move. And that's again just showing that the movement is more from the spine than the limbs. And the limbs are only to amplify the movement. And I'll give you an example of amplifying the movement is, okay, I'll jump onto this slide. So if we look at this guy, and this guy is walking on his stumps, yeah? So we can see that, okay, he is using his hands a bit there as well. And I probably could have found a better image of even someone not using their arms at all. But if you can imagine, a lot of the movement is coming from the trunk itself, yeah? And what I mean by amplifying the movement is, again, now, this guy's extended his limbs, so he's got extra limbs, which is on these stilts here. And now the movement, if they exerted the same energy, this guy is going to move a lot quicker because the movement's amplified, but this movement is still coming to a large degree from the trunk itself. So when we're looking at the limbs are just going to make the movement range a lot bigger. All right, so let's look at the gait. So again, this is just looking at the gait cycle. And we got various, so this is basically propulsion, and as you might be able to see, there's a little bit of the spinal rotation going forward. And I'm going to show you another image from another angle, but this slide is really just to show how the body propels itself, how it amplifies the movement. And you've got different stages of what we call the gait cycle. So, for example, you've got the heel strike there, and then you've got the toe off movement. And then you've got ways in which the body weight bears to propel itself forward. So that's more looking at the propelling model. Not taking into, this gait cycle does not take into consideration the movement of the spine, but I'm going to show you some examples and hopefully things should make sense. Okay. Okay, and again, this is just a statement that the guy that proposed the spinal engine theory, he was basically suggesting that we do not need legs to mobilize, and wooden stumps will be just as useful, but we know that we do need legs to mobilize, but even without legs, we can still mobilize. All right. There was another theory by a guy called David Weck, and he was basically showing that the more that the spine basically produces more powerful movements and when it bends, yeah? So when it laterally flexes, and then also we got the rotation. And that rotation is helped by what we call the oblique sling. So these muscles kind of contract, and as they contract, it helps to this side. So as that contract, it just helps that leg to kind of move and hitch forward. Yeah. So this oblique sling, this muscle, and when we're looking at myofascial slings, we can see that muscles are never working in isolation, but they're working in coordination. And this is why a person can have, let's say, a problem around this area, and that can affect their walking on the opposite side, because these slings are working with the spinal engine to help, again, further increase efficiency. Whereas if these muscles we just focus, and if they work just in isolation, we're not going to get the same quality of movement being produced. So this is just an example of, this is walking in slow motion. And oh, I don't know if you can see it properly, but even when you're looking at the white tag here, you can see as the spine rotates to the right leg will move. And then the spine rotates to the left, we're getting movement of the left leg. So it's not robotic, it's not just my legs movement, but that movement is being generated through the contraction of the muscles in that oblique sling, which you can see over here. All right, so now this is just an example of running now, yeah? And in the running, I over-exaggerate the lateral bending to make it a little bit more efficient. So let me see here. But as you can see, we're getting that rotation coming from the spine. Now, even when I'm running in this manner, definitely the energy that I'm using is quite high, but I'm going to switch up my running just to make it a little bit more energy efficient. And then running. And then what I'm doing here, now I'm getting more lateral flexion. I'm using even more of the spine. And that just makes the movement so much more efficient. So over here, again, this is just running in a very straight manner. I'm still using the spinal engine because there's still rotation. And as you can see, even before the legs move, there is an initiation of the spine there, which helps me to propel. And now this is, I'm more laterally bending, and that's just making the movement a lot more efficient. However, if I had problems of the spine or any limitation of the movement or tightness of the muscle, to achieve that level of efficiency will be very difficult. But again, running at that speed, laterally flexing, is so much more easier than when I'm not doing that movement. All right, so, and then again, when we look at Usain Bolt, you know, again, he's got quite a large lordosis, you know, with the lordosis, the bending, as a lot of Black people do. But also what's unique with Usain Bolt, he's got a lot of scoliosis on that right side. So if you look at the gap between that arm and the gap between that side, you can see, even here, you can see a slight C-shaped scoliosis to the right. And again, that's been documented that even that scoliosis has actually, again, increased his advantage to a degree. And who knows, that scoliosis could have easily been even over time developed just by the way he runs and the way he favors his running. But it's certainly an advantage. So yeah, that's a brief overview of the spinal engine. Yeah, let me know if that makes sense and if there's any questions regarding that. But I suppose the take-home messages to that is this: when we're looking at the spine, and just movement we want to make as energy efficient as possible to get from one point to another point. Even with running, we want to achieve the same thing. And older models are just looking at the legs propelling the body and just carrying it forward. Again, when we look at that in reality, that will take up a lot of energy if we was just to do that, you know. And then when we're looking at the spinal engine, we've got the rotation and we've got the lateral flexion, especially at higher levels. The spinal engine's even more important when we're running at higher speeds, as you can see. If we're, walking normally, we've seen people just propelling, no rhythm, no movement in the spine. There are people that walk like that, but these people are definitely not the best runners. And when we're looking at the lordosis, again, it increases the angles and it just increases the torque, which is, to make everything basically more energy efficient. So everything is coming from the spine, and we can see that in amputees. We can see that even in the basic principles of rehabilitation, we will always get someone working on their core to even be able to stand, to be able to walk. Yeah. All right. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you enjoyed that one. And is there any questions before we move on? Any quick questions about the slides or anything that we didn't quite get? Here is your chance. Going once, going twice.
You're just quick to the sunshine around here. Yes, Christoph, that was yeah. I'm glad you explained and went into that aspect of the spinal engine, because I'm going to delve into a little bit more of the anatomy.
Oh, good,
and the functional aspect of the spinal engine. But yes, did that challenge anybody's current awareness of how the spine functions? That is the thing. if it doesn't, and all that makes perfect sense, then you're already advanced in the knowledge of anatomy. Telling you, if you can check that and say, okay, then it makes sense. All right, I think I'll go on and we can have a discussion about the whole thing afterwards. Yeah. Don't worry. Yeah, as I said, we're always on time, even when we're late. So Christos broke down the spinal engine, and the person who brought it forward brought it to our awareness, and he went through a lovely, probably 40-year journey, getting clarity on the spinal engine. So what I'm going to go through is trying to understand this new knowledge here, this information, applying it to what we already understood. So it's going to look at the muscles and that in relation to walking, running, standing, lifting, carrying, and general activities. How does this now, what Christos just spoke about, how does all this now apply to how we do things? So if we go back through what they refer to as evolution, but I'm not going to look at it from the point of view of evolution. I'm just going to look at it as gibbons, chimpanzees, primates, and monkeys. That evolutionary tree or that branch have been doing what they've been doing. And humanity and humans have been on their path and doing what they're doing. No evolving from monkey to human. But what we can do though, as we have primate and monkey who share similar traits, we can observe how they actually function, their anatomy, and see the differences. So what becomes clear with the anatomy of a primate or a monkey is that their pelvis and their spine is totally different to how ours function. So a moment ago, we was looking at walking styles. And if you can see the same way how we was observing how there's a natural rotation. But if you look closely with the gorilla, there's a upper back fixedness to it. The arms swing because of momentum going forward, but it's not because of rotation in the thoracic area. All that stuff is happening around the waist. Yeah. And the same with the chimpanzee in the in the center. All that stuff there is happening at the waist. It's like how Christopher was talking about the difference. And an orangutan, similar. Even if you got support, even if you're there with your loved one there, same thing. You see how their hips shift forward. And the reason being is because the primates, then, their pelvis. So if you take a look on the image on the right with the, and that's a chimpanzee. If you look at the pelvic area, you see how flat the pelvis is. And then that pelvis goes up. The lumbar spine itself is also very flat. So when they stand up, this is just a lock-in their lower torso. Very efficient for them in this position here. But when it comes to how we stand on the image on the other side, see how we have what we know already called a lumbar curve. If it's over-exaggerated, it becomes what they call lordosis. But it's all in this lumbar region. And this is definitely a relationship between the pelvis, the lumbar, and the sacroiliac joint. So when we're looking at the pelvis, as we realize this is the main area which is influencing the spine, and the spine influencing the pelvis, this relationship here, generating motion. So there are three main movements that's going on when it comes to pelvic movement. And this is the pelvic tilting forward, the pelvis also being able to drop to the side, and the pelvis being able to rotate. This being at the bottom of the spine, all this translates as well through the spine. But there are places where it is of most importance. And it's a funny thing, I come at it's again, two-way. You can look at it from the pelvis up, or from the lumbar, or from the thoracic region down. So as Christos was also showing about this understanding that feet are not required. So during those experiments, when they found a person who was able to demonstrate the ability to walk without feet on the ischial tuberosity, or walking on the stubs of their feet, they found the same torsion taking place. But that torsion, because remember this movement of moving pelvis forwards, the left or the right, then moving the other pelvis forward, is a translating force. That energy or that information is going up. But the thing is, it can be initiated from the torso, from the upper torso. You can fling your upper body forward and generate movement. So if you're looking from the side, I don't know if anyone's ever put their feet together in what they call a butterfly stretch, and then walk your bum close to your heel. It comes like a very similar motion. That demonstrates what we've done probably countless times, that we can walk or move forward without the use of legs. And it's due to this pelvic movement. But when these three activities take place, they create motion. So in this pelvic area, all that will be taking place, the slight side bending or tilting of the pelvis, slight rotation, and the hip going forward, or anterior tilt of the pelvis. So this gentleman shows how in the torso, how you can generate all the force required. So the first is this posterior tilt. It has its place. Erector spinae. When you tilt pelvis forward, your psoas contracts. Your erector spinae at the back contracts up. That's like a tilting motion that takes place. And there is a time to posteriorly rotate, which is the other way, which will be pulling up the hamstring muscle there, rectus femoris, upwards, and the rectus femoris, the abdominal muscles, sorry, down. That will cause a contraction in the front of the body, but there's a time for that one there. But when it comes to the anterior tilt, this is probably the most classic time we utilize it. And this motion here, when we actually activate this pelvic tilt forward, there's a lot of internal stuff that is actually stretched and opened. But when it's and posteriorly tilted backwards, there's a lot of strain. Like we lose energy. We lose energy, and we also have tightening of the hamstrings, tightening of the muscle in that position there. So we have this anterior tilt of the pelvis to generate movement or power. Then we also have this pelvic obliquity, which is a side bending of it. The same. So when we, let's say, stand on right foot and that side of the pelvis goes down, we have, oh, let me see this one there again. I'll do that better if I demonstrate on my own body. Yeah. So if my left pelvis goes up, naturally the left side of the body goes down to that side there. But as being demonstrated a few moments ago, it's when you have injury or you have a problem that the pelvis itself will seek to compensate. But then if you are aligned, you have no issue, no restrictions in your vertebrae or in your muscles, then the side bending will just increase the torque or the power that you're actually trying to utilize. And this side bending is also the thoracic lumbar fascia is also involved in this side bending motion. So it's not muscle that's actually doing this motion here. So when our pelvis tilts, we also have a side bending, as Christos broke down, of the upper body. As that side bends, there's a slight rotation. So as you move your hip upwards, yeah, your body side bends and rotates, which generates motion. This is the second dimension that always takes place. If a problem with it, then we have some kind of injury, some kind of walking impairment, even when it comes to sitting down, some constant pain in the area there. We have a third aspect, which is the pelvic rotation. So as described in running, that when you, let's say your right hip goes forward and your left hip goes behind, your left arm naturally flies forward. We have a natural swinging motion, and these slings and swings help to counterbalance the body. We have a certain degree. If this degree isn't obtained, again, and that's between 5 and 30 degrees, if this isn't obtained, then there is impairment in walking. So we have those three actions going on in the pelvis, which is causing rotation and side bending in the thoracic area. With every step we take, we are experiencing this three-dimensional motion. This three-dimensional motion, however, it impacts two major areas. And these two major areas, remember, we're reviewing this from the point of view of the spinal engine, kind of come out of this other perception. So when we're looking at it from maintaining on that perception there, and we have these three-dimensional movements that's going on, which is propelling, side bending and rotating, we have an area where it needs to remain stable. And if this area doesn't remain stable, then it defers upwards, where the head itself begins to wobble. So in order to maintain stability, when we're generating energy from the pelvis, lower back area, the lower back has to maintain stability, and the center point of this is about L3. So about L3, which is about the center. Call this center of rotation, this point here. But around this point, it needs to be mobile in the sense of around it, muscles are relaxed, the tendons that attach to this area and the ligaments also free. It becomes really apparent when it's not, and it's an area where many people have injury, and it's a coupling effect of pelvic not moving correctly, or there being an injury actually in this area. But when they also look deeper into the spinal engine, I found that, well, let me rephrase that. Male and female have different degrees of lumbar spine curvature. Within the men, our curvature is within 2 vertebrae approximately. So our lordosis is never really that deep. And with women, it's over 3. So women have a deeper lordotic curve. And this is for the sake of growing a child inside, where the body has to adjust to this growth. So with pelvic motion, we have to make sure that this space here is stable. Then we have a decoupling of the motion. And this is not just in walking, this is in general activity and movement, where the rotation is taking place from the pelvis. Yeah, you got them 3-dimensional motions going on, coming up the spine. And there's a point where the energy itself rotates around or pivots around in the thoracic area. And the main purpose is to maintain stability. So this happens, the stability in the head, and this happens around T8. So around this T8 vertebrae, which is just beneath the scapula itself. You know, the scapula has a lovely point. When you go across into the middle and come down, you have this T8 location, and this is another area where people have a lot of injury, as well as L3 as another point. And generally it's because T8 is restricted in motion. T8 should be mobile. So that middle area there should be able to move in all its directions that are available. And then the lumbar spine should be fixed. And this is when we're talking about energy being transferred through so it can flow. If that area becomes stiff in the thoracic area, then it can affect the neck and also C1, C2. So we have this issue of how we appreciate and how we use our body. We be picking up stuff and lifting stuff wrong. We be using our body in the sense of a fulcrum, our body being the fulcrum, and then we bend forwards. And the other thing that was also proposed, which I think it brings a deep level of clarity. Because if we were to propose that the fulcrum point itself is us, the load itself, we're going to pick up. The effort that it takes to pick up that load in front of us would have been proposed to be erector spinae, or the back muscles and glute muscles would be doing the lifting, so we could actually lift up the load. So if the load itself is something like 10 pounds or a kilogram or something, it's not too bad to actually lean forward and pick up a load. We're just talking about leaning forward and picking up. And we know now that's a poor way to pick stuff up. But just for the sake of an example. But if we were to increase the weight, the load, and we take that one up to 100 kilograms, then it becomes a bit of an issue. But what was proposed, that we were able to lift up loads or weights that are greater than us. So let's say you'd be 12 stone and you're going to lift up something that's 12 stone and you bent down to pick it up. The idea that was proposed, when those weights became heavier, because we didn't have the muscles to actually lift that weight, it can be a mathematical equation to verify how much muscle how much mass is required to lift a weight? How much muscle do you need to do that? So they find that the muscles are not strong enough. So what they suggested is that we build up pressure in the core to achieve this. From the pressure we build up in the core, we shift the load and are able to lift it. So let's say we're going to lift up a car from behind. Put our fingers on the back of the car, so our body be the fulcrum, and it's the effort that we need to lift it up with our fingers. Lift, literally. So as that weight is tremendous, again, the idea was that we expanded, we increased the pressure. But the thing is, if this be the case, yeah, and we be increasing pressure like this, we would explode from within, from the way in which the muscle and the bodies are organized. Like, and that's just looking at mathematics. Like, how much weight is a car? So clearly, we're not using the muscle, and it's not pressure that's actually doing that whole process there. And that's a thing that still to this day, many people are believing that it's pressure, it's effort, it's the core that does it. The pressure within that space there. So what the spinal engine theory brought to our awareness within our community, when it comes to healers and therapists, is that there are 3 layers we have to bring our attention to. So just like the core, and I'm going to compare them for a few moments. On this very deep layer, you have between the hamstrings, and this is when it comes to lifting something up, or let's say walking, or the use of the lower body connected to the upper body. So the force in the pelvis is supported with extra force from the hamstrings through the sacral tuberosity. So at the base of the pelvis, if you look on the right-hand side, where the sacrum is, this ligament here acts as a transmitting force. So as the pelvis rotates, shifts up and down, towards forward and backwards, and as it's being tugged, this energy transmits into the erector spinae. Well, all 3 aspects of the erector spinae are activated and stimulated. And this is on the deepest of level. When you're comparing this to the core, then the deepest level would have been psoas and diaphragm. But here we can see we're not looking at this. And if we were to, then we're looking at really only 30% of power developed when it comes to activity and the thing that we're looking to achieve. The actual true power doesn't come from there. So when we look onto the second layer, because there's 3 layers we're going to look at, how is the force transmitted? So the force is transmitted from the pelvis up through the spine, or within the spine itself, and translated down into the pelvis. This whole unit here. And the layer around it, which is the next activity that's taking place, is between gluteus maximus. Just like all described, from gluteus maximus to the head of the humerus, this whole connection there. And these are muscles mainly doing the work there through the connection point of this thoracic lumbar, or this lumbar dorsal fascia, right in the middle, that triangle muscle there. So we have this transmission of force from glute through lax up into the top of the shoulders, sorry, underneath the shoulders, into the humerus, transmitting force. Upper body move, lower body contract. Lower body contract, upper body move. Left or right, either side. So this is when we was looking at the core, would have been the 3rd layer. The things kind of shift a little bit, how system is utilized, how through the research they're finding. So we have this would have been where the glutes and then the thoracic lumbar fascia, latissimus dorsi, would have been acknowledged as the most superior aspect, superficial aspect of the core. And when we're looking at the spinal engine, we can look at this as just a second layer. And then the third layer, the most superficial aspect. And we have a, when it comes to the thoracic lumbar fascia, we have a superficial, we do have a deep as well. So this estimated 70% of power potential, or the ability to generate and create power, is coming from these two fundamental areas, all the fascia through all the different layers. So the only fascia that's connected is this through space. So we have the transverse abdominis muscle, and we also have the thoracic lumbar. And as we can see, the thoracic lumbar directly attaches to the iliac crest. So the iliac crest, this is why it becomes so important to have a pelvis fixed in this position. Can become extremely congested, extremely tight. It is a weak point for humans, especially along this sacral area. If we've been using our muscles more than our fascia, and if we've been using muscle more and overdeveloped them, then we have an imbalance and we have a potential of injury. So the idea is to strengthen fascia. And this is the most superficial layer that we're looking at. So I know we spend a lot of time when we're talking of the core and going into the deeper layers. This is what we're always talking about, the core. So that's diaphragm. Then we go into these muscles on the superficial layer. And it's all in the same vicinity, the same reactor, the same energetic system in the center. So we are working to strengthen this area ultimately. So this is how the idea was proposed, but it has a place. There's a place when we breathe diaphragmatically, expand, and do something, and it helps to reinforce and strengthen the area. We may have a strong core already to do something. So then when we're actually moving dynamically or doing some kind of plyometrics or some movement that requires agility, and there is a sudden shift of body weight, we naturally would contract and expand. But when it comes to now, let's say, going to lift a car, contracting and expanding isn't enough. And using muscles isn't enough. All of a sudden now, it's how integrated is your body. And in order for that power to generate, it's coming from this whole energetic spinal engine area. So when we reviewed this layer here, this most superficial layer, from the core point of view, we check this like this is the because this tissue is beneath rectus abdominis. So as this is beneath rectus abdominis, this this transverse abdominis muscle here, this transverse abdominis, as it's like this, then we would have viewed this as a second layer. So we have connections here. So as I was describing this thoracic lumbar fascia, being in the lower part, well, as you see on the right-hand side, we can see that the fascia runs all the way up superficially and deep. And in anatomy training, we call this the deep backline, and this backline goes from the heel through soleus or through the calf, hamstrings, all the way up to between the eyes actually. So it comes over the scalp and the continual connection. So the generation of energy is actually a whole web of the whole body. So becoming aware of this, there are something that we can do to strengthen this L3 area. So we know we need to maintain stability in L3 because we understand that the spine itself uses this lumbar region to generate energy, but in a stable capacity. There is slight movement below and there's movement above. So in order to strengthen this aspect, a plank is a wonderful practice to do. And there are many variations of plank, and we can do our plank one leg. Start with, depending upon your level of fitness, maybe you want to do 30 seconds, build up to a minute. If 30 seconds is too much, then you bring it down to about 10. The idea is not to have your pelvis drop down or anteriorly tilted. In this case here, it's like you want to pull your pelvis back to keep yourself upright, or so let's say that your bum is slightly up. As soon as your lower back dips, you put a lot of pressure into this L3. So we're looking to expand L2, 3, 4, looking to expand the space and allow stabilization of the fascia while you're holding it in this position here. And this is what you're ultimately achieving through posteriorly rotating your pelvis as you hold yourself up, as the spine is lengthened, the fascial tissue, and it does take time to strengthen. It does take time. But as I was saying, there is, it sometimes feels like there's nothing here, there's not much else to do. We have a physical form, a body. We use it every day. And the remedies are literally our awareness of how to unlock or how to apply a technique. This awareness here. So we've got the plank, which will help to stabilize this L3 area. Then we have a series of activities that we can do, which is really useful to mobilize this T8 or this mid-thoracic area. Or because as we explained, the T8, T9, T7, I mean, this stuff changes depending upon a person's pelvis, but if everything's in alignment, then we're approximately looking at this middle point here, where it should be mobile above and below. The force should be able to transfer through. This decoupling, or this ability to allow the chains or the link to continue, the energetic flow. So we have a series of activities that we can help to increase mobility. We have on the top right here, so the numbers must have disappeared. Using a foam roller. Then from using a foam roller, we can utilize some form of rotation, whether it's lying on the floor, sitting on the floor, or sitting on a chair. We can use all these 3 different motions here. If we're at a workplace, work desk, we can utilize this rotation while seated to fix the pelvis. A technique which I've used a lot when it comes to mobilizing this mid-thoracic area is this simple technique of placing your hand behind your head, visualizing that you have a pencil between your elbow and you draw an infinity movement. And you're trying to keep your elbow as close as possible. Go and give it a try. Put your elbows as close as possible as you can. And then you're doing a 8 motion. You do it 1 minute one way, and then you change, and you do 1 minute the other way. And that's really just to open up that space there. Very powerful technique. Also, we can do this camel and this cat and this back stretch or going backwards. I mean, between this one here, and then I do incorporate what is next to it, where you're bringing your arms underneath your other arm and stretching all the way up. I do this like a routine altogether. Cat, the camel, lean back, come back up, then put my arm through to the other side, then lean back, then come back up. And no, we don't do it that fast. We're looking at, depending upon what stage of the day or how we're feeling. That might be 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. It may be held for a couple minutes, each position. It really depends, but it's powerful technique to just open up and unlock the whole of the back, this thoracic area. That's a brief overview or understanding of how to utilize and understand this spinal engine. So we understand what it is from the description that Christos gave us. And then how do we utilize this stuff in our everyday? What does it mean to us? Well, basically what it means that you need to be aware of your L3 space and your, L3, 4, 5, L3, 2, L2, L3, L4. Just put in the tree in the middle. And then with the thoracic area, it's the same. You want to be looking at T8, T7, and T9. So then T8 is able to move freely above the vertebrae below, both of them, above and below. So when those two spaces are functioning optimally, and it's amazing because I will do a treatment and we go into that space, and it's only when we start looking into this that we understand why we're always going into that space. Because we walk every day, we lift up stuff every day, we use the body in ways that are incorrect from a very young age. These areas get stuck, and then it causes huge ramifications on other parts of the body. So this is one of the benefits of being aware of this spinal engine.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Sahu. Definitely complimentary to everything that I missed out.
That makes me laugh. Oh my word. I'm glad that you went through because I wasn't gonna go through what you went through. I was thinking, just gotta try and apply this for a minute.
Yeah.
Gotta try.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
It's about doing the plank. If you're not as strong as you might need to be to do a full plank and you use your knees, would you still be trying to position your pelvis posteriorly tilted the way you would if you were using your feet? Do you understand what I mean?
I understand what you mean. You want to answer that one there, Christos? So, oh, you're on mute. So your knees down, but then you're gonna go forward, bearing as much.
Okay. Oh, so what, maybe if I act it out.
Yeah, go for it.
And you can tell me if this is what you mean. Oh, let me visualize that one there. All right. So you're saying your knees down, or are you talking about a full plank or?
No, knees down plank.
No, not a full plank.
Okay. And then what else was you saying about the knees?
Where was your forearm or your hand? That's what I was trying to figure out for a moment.
Oh, so it will kind of be like.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Not arched like that. This is anterior tilt of the pelvis. It will be engaging like that. Now I can feel that working. Now I'm just resting.
Okay,
now I'm engaging.
I see. Okay, that helps me. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Stay in posterior tilt.
Yeah.
And it does make a huge difference, as you can see on Christos's lumbar, how it puts pressure on it when you're anteriorly tilted.
Yes. Thank
Seems
you.
to be more important than the idea of contracting the core, because that's when you're contracting the belly, that's what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah, and with that one, what it does as well, you can feel the whole load of the lower back being lifted. When my pelvis was just left in that position, and especially, let's just say if I had a very big lordosis, then that might even be painful to do.
Definitely.
And this is why it's so really important just to be able to get that engagement of the core muscle, because we get so lazy in these other positions when we're even like sitting on a chair, and a lot of us are like slouching forward, and then we're on a computer, as opposed to contracting, sitting upright, and something's like lifting us up from like a string, lifting us up.
Mhm.
Opposed to just lazy positions or any extremes.
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome.
Yeah. Any other questions there about this spine? Because we didn't even go through all the other stuff there. The other issues that may happen, or arthritis, or hernia, or any kind of issues. We didn't even touch on that stuff there. The dysfunction of the spine, which I'm really glad. We need to be looking at how to create a healthy, strong, powerful engine in the body. Mechanisms that are actually involved in that, and how to focus on that. So there are some weird stretches we do all the time, which release the area, which I find when I start, as I'm looking do this presentation for this week here, and then I'm doing my normal stretching and activities, I just really observe doing those rotational stretches when you feel the release from them, how much additional power you have or strength. Experienced that even on class on Wednesday, with some of the movements that we were going through. So is there any other questions about our spinal engine? Soon they'll be catching up with us. No longer will we be saying that we lift the load and it's pressure we need to contract and hold the belly. We've gone beyond this idea.
Can I ask a question? It's Lorraine. Hi, Sahu. Hi, Christos.
Hi there.
Yes. So with a lot of us now, we're working at the desk for the best part of the week. So what would you recommend that we do periodically throughout the day to really strengthen that engine?
Yeah. So there were two images there that I showed you in the presentation.
The sitting ones, I've seen the sitting ones.
Oh, perfect. So when you just, because every so often, it's like you have to anteriorly tilt your pelvis, and it contracts your lower back, but it comes like that contraction pushes out any kind of edema or any fluid, or squeeze the muscle to get the blood circulating. So to maintain that posture is ideally the best. And then periodically, it's a lovely rotation. And that rotation where you just rotate to the left and rotate to the right while sitting, we call it unlocking the jade pillar, where you just turn, hold for 10 seconds to 1 minute, and do the other side. And that should be done as well. Periodically.
Thank you. Thank you.
And even sitting on a gym ball, sitting on a gym ball will help you, encourage you to sit in that nice upright posture.
Yeah.
And just to help you activate your core throughout the day. So switching between you can sit your normal sitting down, sitting on a gym ball, and then if you've got a standing desk, using your standing desk. If you want to be more inventive, stand on one leg.
I'm telling you, go into tiptoe for a minute.
Yeah. And you can just make yourself a whole routine based on that. I know when I was working for the NHS at the beginning part of lockdown, I had to do it. The gyms were closed. I was, very unhappy, but I had to do a whole range of different stuff just to stop me sitting. And again, you can get these cushions. Like, I think if you type in something like back pain cushion on Amazon, it will automatically come up. But these cushions with a groove, and the groove naturally just helps you have your pelvis in the correct tilt, rather than a hard surface. So all these things is something that you can do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I have noticed that, when you put a very small cushion, or you put a very small ball or a crystal, where the coccyx or where the sacrum is depending on the size, how it shifts the rest of the spine. Even if you're sitting down, and then you put the little ball into them space there in your lower back. But we do that just as a normal thing. The reason why, because them ball they're soft. There's no discomfort in them ball there. Them ball there, like they just get the blood circulating in the area there.
Yeah.
So
You just have to be careful what you're getting from Amazon, because some of them are rock hard.
yeah, man, we don't need no rock hard one all the time. Sometimes we need a soft one. Well, that's another thing that we can utilize in the chair. Put that underneath the bottom, on the left cheek, bum cheek, the glute medius area, beneath the sacroiliac crest. And then just right on the side of the spine, where the iliac crest is as well. So it's like in the edge. These are the areas that you can use it as well for the sitting long days.
So I have one other question, if that's okay, about the presentation. One of the slides has had a label false dantian, and I'm wondering what that means.
Okay.
Why it means false? Yeah, why false?
Oh, because that was when I was doing that presentation. It was referring to the outer surface.
Okay, like the musculature instead of the interior, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful question. All right, so any other questions there? It seemed like
Yeah, so how's everyone's understanding of the spinal engine? So if I ask a question, anyone can answer it. Let me think of, if someone can tell me just one feature of the spinal engine, it can be anything. Just one feature, or one take-home message, which is more important. All right.
That's right. Rotate.
Yeah, rotate. Well, if we're going to type it, then more than one answer from different people.
And if we're saying rotate,
someone speaking.
If we're saying rotate, then are we talking about rotating lumbar spine or thoracic spine? Yeah, it's true.
So we got lordosis is good for running and walking as it aids the flow of energy. Yeah, no, that's correct. It just makes everything more energy efficient through, again, that torque and all that rotation. Because yeah, when you think of it, imagine when you're walking, and let's say you're getting tired as you're walking, and especially children will demonstrate this very well. They're walking normally one moment and then they get tired, and then they get the whole sometimes lateral rotation of the trunk. They're fed up and they're not really walking, they're just kind of gliding somehow, where they're not using their legs the way it should be used. That lazy type of movement is the kind of like, I don't really want to walk anymore, but I know I have to follow my parents. So we got yes, efficiency, yes, very much like rocking. Yeah. That is exactly it. Pregnancy to waddling. So the waddling in the pregnancy. Yeah, you do get this kind of wide type of walk, don't you?
And that's because of the thoracic, the upper back becoming limited in motion. So then the head maintains its kind of centerness. Not much different from when we observed the primates. I saw a woman do that the other day, walk down the street holding her partner's hand, little woman. She was properly doing the rock. I'm like, yeah. And she was little as well, I think because she's small. Oh my word.
So I'd like, can I speak my answer because it's too long to type? Or it's actually a question and trying to answer your question about the spinal rotation and mobility. If you're doing a movement that in Tai Chi, like a ward off or something like that, where you're using the torque of the body for the power, can I extrapolate from what you said that the main part of it would be coming from the hips, just like you were saying, somebody can walk without essentially using the leg, but then the legs amplify the movement.
And we would push down using ground force to achieve that, innit?
Okay.
Maintaining the softness in the knee. But it would be
But does it initiate in the hips and
yeah.
the spine? Okay.
Yeah, the spine and the hips, yeah.
Okay.
More so because there is confusion with the hips and the pelvis, just by way of what we refer, and even the waist. You know, when we're looking at the pelvis is that bone you can feel there. When you're looking at the hips is more referred to that ball and socket joint.
Okay.
Yeah. So initially we'll start off definitely within the spine, that core, and then that spine, because our pelvis is attached to it, so the spine is then moving the pelvis.
I see. Thank you. That's very, very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. What's interesting with the Tai Chi as well, and especially myself, practicing it with Sahu teaching me the Tai Chi, I can definitely feel there's something which we call hand forms. And then with the hand forms, you got the square, which is very rigid, 1, 2, 3. And then you've got the round form. And I can tell you that the round form encompasses all the movements together in a circular motion where it requires less energy to perform it in a round way. Yeah. It requires, definitely you have to think and integrate everything. You still have to be mindful of the square, but when you're actually performing it, it's actually so much easier. And it looks 100 times better as well.
Flow. But all those movements there where we're doing in the hand form, a lot of it's initiated. It feels like most of it, even if you're doing, as you described, the hand form, the simple raising up of the arms, just that initial part there, even that movement of raising the arms incorporates the tilting of the pelvis, the softening of the knee, and the pushing up of the earth or the foot, the foot ground connection. It's almost like you're pushing down with the feet, and you feel that energy going up through your legs into the pelvis, and then you're raising your arms up. It's so subtle though. But so you're not just raising the arm. It's like you're pushing your hips forward and lifting up the arm. And the hip goes forward. Such a small movement, but it's the same. So when your arm gets up to shoulder height, that's when your pelvis is kind of like stopped. It's in its neutral point or in a point of greatest balance. So it's even when you're standing still, forget about stepping forward, and actually doing a movement where you're clear and you know you're using your pelvis and your hips. Sorry, your pelvis, lower back area. Even when you're still, you're using the same mechanism. You feel your breath. If you're doing Dantian breathing, you feel the stretch and the opening. Yes, Shirley, you have a question there?
I was at an AGM meeting and I tried. I actually logged on while I was traveling back home and I lost some of it. Okay. However, what I want to ask is there one type of exercise that you can do to incorporate all the different movements that is necessary to keep your body in good form? Like Tai Chi, for instance, or Qigong, or, you know?
Is there one type of exercise? Well, I can say it like this then. We can do any type of activity, any type of any exercise, any movement, if we incorporate fundamental principles in that activity. So it almost come like it doesn't really matter. But then we utilize the teaching of Tai Chi or Qigong, maybe yoga, maybe Pilates, to teach this in action, which would be the integration of your breath, the slowing down of the motion, the integration or the lengthening of your spine. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, lengthening of your spine, the lengthening of your limbs, this awareness here and moving around your center, whatever you're doing. So it doesn't even require to be, so you can be cooking at the cooker, washing dishes the same way. And then we go lean up on one side of our leg. But really, it's an opportunity. That's an exercise where we can now utilize the same slow down, take a deep breath in, breathe from lower belly. Yeah, so on one level, everything is an opportunity. But then we use those systems to help us to understand how to use it in our everyday life.
Yeah, I understand that, but yeah, thank you. I do various forms during the day, as you said, depending on whether I'm going upstairs or washing dishes or doing the, you know, different household chores, or even going out for a walk in the park. Yes.
That's right. Don't miss the opportunity, you know, to be good to yourself.
Yes.
I feel a lot of it is just really, like Sahu was saying, it's just about awareness. Awareness in the sense of how you're moving, how you're contracting muscles. What I would say to add on to top of that is that there's certain exercises that will kind of help you become more aware.
That's true.
You know, and these are like your things like Tai Chi. These are your exercises like yoga. These are your things like Pilates. And you know, myself, I love going to the gym. But the more I do things like Tai Chi, the more I incorporate some Pilates-based exercise, the more I do the stretching, is the more I become aware of what I need to achieve in the gym. And without doing these things, the gym will feel too much mechanical, too one-sided. But by just incorporating all these other things, it's actually helped me build up the awareness of the muscles that I need to move. So I think from a baseline, everyone should be doing these type of exercises as a basis, and then other exercises as that second layer. And if you're a sports person, you will be having a third layer, which is a sport. But, you know, if you're a sports person, whether you're at a top level or, you know, you do it competitively, it's still very, very important to have the base. And I don't know, I do believe that a lot of sports people are doing the Tai Chi element. Pilates element, yes, I think there's some things that are incorporated, definitely. But when I look at the young players, and some of these young players have played professional and stuff like that, when I get them to do a simple thing like a bridge, I'm looking at them like, oh my goodness, what happened? And then I go, actually, well, the reason why you're here, probably because you don't know how to do the bridge properly. But then if they was doing other things, like when you're looking at people like, as an example, Ibrahimovic, a footballer who's just retired. I mean, the man's nearly 40 and he's just retiring from football. But then when you look at him, he's good at the martial arts. You know, when you look at another player, a well-known one, Cristiano Ronaldo, you know, you can see he's applying some of those core principles. He's doing all the Pilates and stuff like that.
I think that man was doing capoeira.
I don't know about Ronaldo being Portuguese,
Oh, he's Portuguese Ronaldo. He's
Yeah.
I swear there's a Brazilian Ronaldo.
That one's long retired.
Long retired. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So Jamie, you said, yet since my injury, I'm incorporating more of what I've been shown with the gym. I am waiting to become a meme. And a comment to Ibrahimovic, Jamie said, yeah, he could kick off people's head. Yes, he could do that, but most importantly, that flexibility that he had allowed him to kick the
Wow,
football.
I didn't even know he done martial arts.
Yeah, and he looks really good at
Take
it.
a look at
Really
different
good.
footballers.
Mm.
Yes, Alan, you have a question there.
Yes, hello. Good evening to everybody. Crystal
too.
and Sahu, a lovely presentation, very informative and very educational and well presented. Thank you very, very much. A spinal twist in an exercise. So Sahu normally does a spinal twist. So if you lie on your back, yeah, and you've got both your left and your right shoulders, top of your shoulders pinned to the floor, and you lift your right knee and you send it across your body so that you have a spinal twist.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if I do that on one side or the other side, one side is stiffer than the other side. But if I do that and I stay there for a while and then I stretch out the foot that's extended, I hear a crack in my back, quite a few cracks. Crack, 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 crack. Yeah. Is that good for the back, having these cracks, or is it bad? It's not in my back, it's in my hip.
It depends who you're asking. If you're asking the chiropractor, they might say no, because you've put them out of a job. Definitely yes. Yeah, it is good. Because what is happening with the joints, just general day-to-day living, the way we're sitting, lying, all these things, it builds up, you get tightness in the joints will stiffen up. And what they're saying, the cracking noise is like what we will call crepitus. And the theory behind the crepitus is to do with like the gas bubbles within the synovial joint building up. And then as we're moving in a certain way and getting an adjustment of the spine or mobilization, you get the crack, which is meant to be the release of these gas bubbles. And basically, when a therapist is doing the mobilization or manipulation, that's when we achieve the crack, we know we won't be able to achieve it again.
Right.
Because that means, there's been a shift, the synovial, the gas bubbles have been released. It needs time for it to build up again. So the general theory is that's why a lot of chiropractor appointments are like 15 minutes. Because they will do the...
So Christos, why did the pressure build up in the first place?
That's just to do with just posture, holding oneself in a position for too long.
So the muscle and the tendons that are connected to the vertebrae or to the joint, not maybe ligaments as well, because the ligaments encapsulate the space, but it's the muscular tension, yeah, we're looking at. Muscular tension, more so than anything else here.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at it in a rational way, we know if there was stuff going on in the spine, which is things like stenosis, you're not going to be able to just crack a stenosis. So yeah, we know a lot of it is to do with the musculoskeletal tension rather than actually a true locking of the back or a true stiffening up of the back. But the joints will stiffen up based on what the muscles are doing as well. And that's why, you see therapists using even stuff like the massage gun just to help loosen up the muscles, just to make everything a little bit more easier.
But one thing I must say before before you move on is that I have an issue with this stuff here, because as chiropractors, we'll be just releasing, whether it's the hip, the sacroiliac joint, vertebrae, or even if it's the knee itself or the foot, doesn't really matter. You can do an articulation or a high velocity thrust. You can do a low velocity thrust or a high velocity thrust and put a sudden force through the area there and release it. The only reason why I have an issue is because if this is the approach and the muscles in the area are not deactivated, if the fascia has not been lengthened, doesn't matter if it's the knee, hip, back, doesn't really matter. If that hasn't happened and you just release the joint and you release that gas, the muscles are still tight. So then it's just going to take maybe a few hours, maybe a couple of days, maybe tomorrow. You go sleep, the position that you hold yourself when you wake up, and that muscle is still tight. All you've released is the pressure, and you've released the facets. Facets have become unstuck, which is what are gliding over each other when it comes to doing a high velocity thrust in the thoracic area or the lumbar along the spine. But even if it is a hip or actual big joint, if the muscle isn't released, that pressure is going to build up again, because all it was took place is that you released the pressure inside. You didn't deactivate the tissues or loosen up nothing else. So this is why osteopaths out of this approach probably are far more better, because they will do soft tissue work, then they'll do a high velocity thrust or something, depending upon it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because, and it's not true for every chiropractor. I mean,
yeah,
because what we're having now, we've got different discipline who's stuck to their school of thoughts, but now, I mean, the true practitioners not really even going by what they're called anymore. They've got their label, they got their title, but they can do a wide range of things, especially 2023. But yeah, that's the answer to that question.
So sorry, going back to what Sahu's just summarizing on what you're saying, is if there's a high velocity movement and you do get a crack, and that's the releasing of gases, you're Sahu, you're then saying that you should do some tissue work, some massage, and to soften the impact of those gases being released.
Well, that works really well to get because many times I've had it with clients where I'll see them after a chiropractic treatment, or I'll see them before, and really depend upon the timing. But it does need to be within the 3 days maximum of the point of manipulation. So if you're going to get it tomorrow, then you can do it today, ideally on the same day. If you had it today, tomorrow, okay, tomorrow's okay, but the day after, and it's only because we got a 3-day kind of scenario where muscles start to tighten up. Then we have a 2-week window. We got a 3-week window and a 2-week window. 2-week window is like the tissue now have stabilized in their space. So within the 3-day window, it's like our bodies are slightly retracting. By the 3rd day, they maintain a place where they retracted to. Now you have another week or so for it either to retract or maintain it, and depend what you do. So then this is why sometimes things don't repair the way they should, because people are working outside of this 3-day to a week process where they come maybe 2 weeks and the body has solidified, have tightened up a little bit, but has really maintained it. We want to remodel tissue, so we want to interrupt that process there. And it needs to be within 3 to 7 days of to interrupt. I love the way I go off on tangents here.
I totally agree with you. I've observed that as well. There's that time frame, and sometimes it is making the clients understand this important time frame, And I've observed it where, again, as well as, you know, the massage and stuff, it is a strengthening. And sometimes the strengthening can take it up to the 2 week period, or possibly take up to the 3 week period. But, you know, when you're not doing nothing and you're just, you know, a person might need to come back frequently based on what they're prepared to do. And if they haven't got the time to do things, then, you know, they're going to need more work. So sometimes, you know, I would advise clients that, you know, if you're not prepared to do it, then, you know, you're going to have to live the luxury life like a footballer and get a massage every, you know, once in a while, just to maintain. But it is very important that there are other things that are being done along with treatment, along with recovery time, because, you know, things will tighten up. If the first question you've got to ask is, why did it even get to that place in the first time? Unless you got injured or there was a bad trauma. If things have developed over time, you have to question, okay, why am I in pain now? What factors led to it? And usually these factors will stay around unless you're consciously aware of it. Sometimes it just takes a therapist making you realize what's going on. Because, you know, you might not be aware of everything that's happened or even the history. Sometimes you need someone to dissect it. But it is very important to understand the thing that caused the problem in the first place. Even when we're looking at injuries out there, a lot of injuries, they say, oh, I rolled over my ankle. Okay, that was the cause of the injury, but that wasn't the root cause of the injury. You know, your ankles were telling you for the last 6 months that they were unstable. And it's now that you're taking the extra step when you was tired, it was a little bit windy, you know, it was just waiting to happen. Yeah.
I think we also have to be prepared to put ourselves in a position where we make ourselves available to have the assessment, to have the treatment. It's not necessarily, I know that we're sort of tempted with the NHS and waiting on the NHS, but sometimes before it gets to chronic pain, we have to seek out people like yourselves to get it dealt with instead of just waiting on the NHS, because, you know, people will pick up their money and spend it on whatever. But if you don't have your health, you know, it's pointless having the money just sitting there.
Yeah,
And the latest trainers and the latest designer, whatever, isn't going to give you the health and the relief and the ease that you need. And I'm talking from personal experience.
Right.
I was in pain and I just picked up the phone, I made my appointment and I got my money and I went and got my treatment. And trust me, people, it is so needed. And if you're working and you're not making time for yourself, then you need to look at the point that when you drop down, they'll find somebody else. You need to take care of your health.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Well said.
And she can say that because she came clear all the way from outside of London, other side of England. Couldn't believe it. All the way from the other side of England. We got people live in my area who find an issue, who have a problem with timing. All the way from outside Birmingham coming down into London. It's amazing. I mean, more people who take their health, take themselves, their body more serious than the actual outer world, the work that they engage in. And that can be extreme, so I'm not even going to say what I was thinking there. I can take this idea quite extreme when it comes to how serious we have to take ourselves. We put so many people, things, ideas, family, children, all in front of us, all as an excuse. And then when it comes to the end of the day, when the end of life happen, or we're coming too close to the end of days, or we can look back in regret, or we can just complain about these things here.
Mm.
Yeah, but no more of them things there.
And the ultimate thing is you don't pay now, you pay later,
Oh, you see,
but with interest as well.
different
And
currency.
yeah, the interest I'm talking about is you got your back, your ankle pain. The ankle pain gathers interest. It becomes
Yeah.
interested in your knee. Now you got ankle and knee pain.
Telling you.
Usually it will be the opposite side because of all the compensation. That can gather interest, and maybe, you know, your ankle pain might slowly fade, but you got your knee pain and now you've got back pain at the same time. Then before you know that, you know it gathers more interest. You're not as mobile, you're not doing the sports or the things you would have liked to. It gathers more interest than it's your general health. I mean, when you're looking at health and aging, it is really down to the level of even flexibility and mobility one has. You know, the more flexible you are from everything you've been doing through the foods, the exercise,
Yeah.
you know, there's so many different concepts of age, and people are aging much quicker, you know, just because of life and the frequencies and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really important to invest in your body.
Definitely. And take that not just into stretch, rotate back, stretch out hamstring, stretch your neck, stretch your foot, massage the foot. They spend so much time on the earth in weird devices that choke and produce circulation. I'm unsure because I heard a weird one the other day, but I hope people don't do this. Wear socks for more than one day. I heard the other day that if you wear sock, it was a research that was done. If you wear socks going to bed at nighttime, that stuff there can be worse than it can cause. No, not cause a heart attack, but it can cause death. The article come like it was really extreme, but then I can only assume that it's because the people them is wearing dirty socks through the day, and the uptake coming back up through the bloodstream. Oh, we need to look after our feet, even if it is changing shoes every day, a different pair of shoes to let the other one breathe. But we don't have, most of us don't wear shoes that breathe or have space in it. So to change the footwear every day and clean socks every day. No socks going into bed unless you have to. Pure tangents. But we're going to go into the foot. I think in probably a few months, to be honest. Yeah, in a few months we'll get into the lower, into the lower limb. You would think that when we talk about the lower limb, feet and all that stuff, we were talking about locomotion, but we already spoke about locomotion. It's all coming from the spinal engine. The spinal engine generating the ability to lift, to turn, to lift up stuff, to run, to squat, to do all the movements that our body is required to do. This is why we need to lengthen the spine, expand the limbs, and breathe from the belly. Always engage in the spinal engine. Never turn it off. Don't allow your engine to go on, what they call it. What is it called again in a car? When you've got the engine.
Oh, stalling?
No stalling. And what you got when it's revving over.
Oh, revving.
Idle.
That's right. We don't want the thing to go idle. Thank you. You see, we don't want that. We want to keep the thing constantly humming at a nice, constant rate. And that's through our breathing. Imagine this, our breath keeps the engine going at a certain tone and a certain voltage. Anything else you want to add to them and let them know about Christmas before we leave everybody? Or did you pause on me there? It looked like Christos pause and a smile. To that.
Yeah, Christos is paused. I just want to say something about the socks. Yeah.
Yes, go on, Alan.
If I wear my socks
during
during the day, yeah, as I come home and I turn my socks inside out, the amount of dust
Oh my
that
word.
comes out the socks
That
is
is
unbelievable.
deep.
Maybe it's just that I got dry foot. I do cream my foot in the mornings, but even, yeah, the amount of stuff that comes out my socks is
Oh
unbelievable.
man.
You need-
What's good to look into?
You need to do a salt scrub, man. Salt scrub on the foot.
Soak the foot and salt scrub that. And then also, because I'll be massaging my foot with oil in the morning. But same as what you're doing there. But what was the other thing? That's it. The earthing socks is an interesting technology. The earthing socks with fine thread of silver, or socks made from silver, to increase the conductivity in the feet. This will have an interesting effect on that process that you're going through. We love technology. It's how to use it. Right, everybody. I think we have gone through everything. Yeah, all the questions they're answered. Christos?
It looks
Can I
like
just ask about the feet again? What if you have cold feet and then you do need to warm them up with socks before you go to sleep and stuff?
Those earthing socks are really good for that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really good. And some, depending, some earthing socks have a clip on it, so you can attach it to the wall, so you can still get the electrons directly from that.
Okay, thank you.
Give it a try. I've heard really good things from the earthing socks from many different people. To be honest, I've heard really good stuff from the earthing technology generally when it comes to increasing circulation, affecting
Earthing socks. Where do you get this from?
You can go to groundology, co.uk.
Grant, B-R.
Ground, as in Groung. Am I spelling that right?
Oh,
And
groundology.
ology.
Okay, thank you. Groundology at groundology.
Co.uk.
Okay.
Like they're the official website for the people that created that technology over in America in the 2000s. Can't remember something over. Anyway, the technology that was developed, there's only a few manufacturers or people in this country that is actually able to reproduce it. The rest of the stuff you find on Amazon and these places here is just a copy of the technology. And to be honest, to invest in it directly, it's not that much different in price.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Are you talking about like an earthing mat? Is that what you mean?
earthing mat, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Earthing bed sheet, earthing yoga mat. I got a yoga mat there that we do has that same technology there. You can have one for your computer. So you can have it as a little mat, a really small one. Attach the thing to the wall. So wherever you're doing your computer, you can have it right there, or put it on your feet. A lot of options. Thank you, Christos.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything. It was wonderful.
you're more than welcome.
Yes.
And it was a pleasure having you guys there,
Yeah,
helping us bring the information out there.
definitely. And as we go through this information, it always brings clarity and awareness as well to myself and Christos, as we have to compile, look into, and try to explain what will be knowledge of the future, this normal stuff. Right now, it's like we are talking about stuff which is, you have a conversation with dependent, a physiotherapist or a doctor, or even an orthopedic surgeon, and because of the way in which they're taught, they will look at you like, say, yeah, they don't know what you're talking about. It's like you're gonna have to come with some hard, proper, know your anatomy language, your terms, and how to describe the planes, and they will look at you and their mouth shut. They can't, So this it's the language. But should we explain it in simple language? Don't be overpowered by these people who are professional that try to override. It's not pressure. It's fascial system integration.
And you know, when we're delivering it to you guys as well, we have to think of ways to make it engaging. You know, so it's very different to how we would present to a boring, stiff people who just want random facts and figures. You know, it's, you know, because a lot of you guys on, you know, that we're delivering it to, you know, you're thinking with both hemispheres of your brain. You know, so yeah, it's you know, really nice, you know, delivering these talks to you guys, because yeah, it helps us as well to use both sides of our brain, because out there, gosh, sometimes
Trying to enforce our knowledge upon people who are adamant with the way in which they have been taught. You're just gently guiding the new breed of wisdom seekers when it comes to the functional anatomy of the body.
Greetings.
Yes.
Yes, we'll be getting the replay of this one because I've only joined in the last 15 minutes because I was out and I wasn't able to join.
Okay.
Would there be a replay?
Yeah.
as always,
Right. Okay.
Let's go to the Tai Chi Future on the YouTube. Yeah, or it'll be
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
You're welcome.
All right. Saying that, it looked like we're ready, Christos.
All right, then take care, everyone, and we see you in a fortnight.
And hold on, a fortnight. What are we doing again? The light.
Oh yes, yeah, because that's solstice, isn't it? Around the solstice. So the solstice longest day of the year is on the 21st of June. And Leon will be joining us on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that one will be interesting. He'll be touching on some real relevant stuff pertaining to the people, the community. And yeah, you definitely want to be listening to that, because after you listen to that talk, it will definitely make you appreciate being out in the sun more. Yeah. So do join us and invite your friends, invite your family, because it's going to be very important for them as well. Yeah. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
And everyone, have a wonderful evening. Get as much sunshine, breathe, drink plenty of water, and be kind to yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks, Sahu and Christos.
You're welcome.
Yeah, cheers, my brothers.
All right, take it easy.